Thanks for joining us on Shannons Club TV, the show for all motoring enthusiasts to reflect on the heritage of cars on Australian roads and in competition. You can join the Shannons Club free on the website, where you can also connect with other members and catch up on previous episodes. Still to come, we'll take an up-close look at our feature car with a proud owner, and we get the latest market updates from the Shannons auctions team. Right now though, the Aussie car that made Australians start to question the value for money equation, the HK Holden. The HK Holden marked so many firsts in 1968 for all the right and wrong reasons. It was the first Holden to offer a V8 option and a first gear synchromesh option for its base manuals. The HK Premier was the first 4-headlight Holden. The stunning Monaro, which followed in July 1968, was Holden's first coupe and the first Holden to win Bathurst. If Ford and Chrysler had not applied the blowtorch by building competitive Holden rivals in Australia, the HK would have been more of the same. It had already been delayed, so it could be stretched to match the bigger 1966 Falcon. As the first Holden to comfortably seat 6 full-size Australians, it was too late to meet the first wave of baby boomers hitting their teens. For the HK, Holden handed you an empty plate and left you to fill it at your cost. This was at a time when Japanese cars came with heated demisters, 4-headlight styling, radios, front disc brakes, carpet, clocks, toolkits and all synchro gearboxes. It was hard to reconcile the mid-range HK Kingswood model, which came with none of these features, with the wild new HK Monaro GTS 327 Coupe. The GTS 327 was a stunner, with eye-locking appeal never seen in a Holden. Under the skin there was a hot 327 cubic inch Chev V8, close ratio gearbox, limited slip diff, anti-tramp rods on the rear axle, a big 25-gallon fuel tank and a top speed of 200 kilometres an hour. Clearly, it was destined for a showdown with Ford at Bathurst. Despite the GTS 327's towering performance, the previous HR's tiny 161 or 2.6 litre engine was now the standard power plant for the HK, with an extra 100 kilograms to lug. Despite the HK's big increase in carrying capacity, the standard brakes were still drums, and you still had to stop to find first gear, only more frequently with the extra weight and the small engine. The HK's extra safety, big car looks and the Monaro connection allowed Holden to dominate Australia's heavily protected market with just under 200,000 units sold. Yet its many shortcuts could only make rivals bolder. There was clearly a disconnect between what buyers were offered in the showrooms and what they were watching on the racetrack, but it didn't seem to matter. The mystical powers of motorsport in influencing car buyer perceptions were never better demonstrated than with the GTS 327, particularly when it took on Mount Panorama. Well, joining us on Hammer Time to discuss the HK Holden is Tony Hansen. Welcome, Tony.
Thank you, Mark.
HK Holden. Do we see many of these come across the blocks at the Shannons Auctions House?
Yes, we do. Yeah, quite regularly have an HK come through, whether it be a 327 GTS Monaro or a Brown. We certainly do see a fair share of HKs coming through.
A lot of different models though. It was a big range of cars,
Very
wasn't
big
it?
range of cars.
You take into account the fact that Monaro, the first two-door Holden, and all that commercial, all the commercials. I mean, there's a lot of cars.
Well, they had Utes, they had panel vans, they had Kingswoods, Belmonts, which was the very base model.
And it was the first Kingswood.
Yes, that's correct, Mark. Very first Kingswood to hit the brand.
So what's the most popular models out there?
Well, I think there's two. I think that's the 327 GTS Bathurst Monaro,
Yeah, sure.
and also the 307 Brown.
But then you got with Monaro. I mean, you had the base model Monaro, the Monaro GTS, the GTS 327. I mean, I imagine is the V8 model more in demand than the 6 cylinders?
I think the V8 model is more in demand if it's a factory V8 model, but we do see a lot of 6 cylinders coming through and a lot of 6 cylinders that have been converted to V8s as well.
And there were some great colours in that range.
Oh,
What are the most popular
colours
out there in collector world?
In the Monaro, I would think it would have to be the silver mink or the Warwick yellow, and in the same in the there's nothing better than a silver mink Browham or a silver mink HK Prem.
And what about the backup for these cars? I mean, Holdens being Holdens, I imagine there's a fair amount of support in terms of reproduction stuff?
There's a lot of reproduction parts on the market. There's a lot of new stuff still floating around, new old stock stuff. Again, the internet's the way to go, but there is a lot of reproduction parts being made for this model.
Yeah, and the Brome, that's a very, very interesting car. Do you see many of those?
We do, yes. We certainly have sold quite a lot of Bromes through the Shannons auctions over the years. The ones that are the quite popular ones are the 307 Bromes with the brocade interior. Very, very nice car.
Now, we both know the HK Holden was very popular with modified car guys, with a lot of cars modified. Is there a trend, as we see in other marques, to take them back to original?
Yes, there is, Mark. There is a good trend, and it's a good thing as well. A good original HK Brome or a HK Prem or even a HK Wagon in original trim, original wheels, white wall tyres, hubcaps. Really nice way to have a car.
And we talk about the 327 V8, but there's also the 307 Chevy V8, which was quite rare these days, isn't it?
Very rare, especially in Monaro, but not so rare in the Bromes.
And I guess, there was a lot of firsts in this model.
Yes, Mark, correct. First V8, first two-door, first Kingswood, for instance. A lot of firsts.
Yeah, and of course the first two-door Holden, the Monaro.
The Monaro.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very collectible car. Well, thanks for joining us, Tony.
No worries, Mark.
And keep in mind, you can keep up to date with all the latest news and Shannons auction results on the Shannons Club website. On its release in June 1968, the GTS 327 high-performance version of the new HK Monaro added menacing intent to the coupe's swoopy lines. And beneath those special badges, racing stripes and bright colours beat the heart and soul of an American muscle car that was clearly designed with Bathurst in mind. However, in stark contrast to its stunning 200 km/h top speed, the brakes Holden supplied to stop this near 1.5 tonne projectile were barely adequate. The solid, non-ventilated front disc rotors were tiny, with even smaller drum brakes under the tail. It was these feeble stoppers that would prove to be the new Monaro's major weakness under racing conditions. The GTS 327 made its Bathurst debut in the 1968 Hardy Ferodo 500. 8 of the new Monaros faced 9 of the latest XT Falcon GTs in what was officially the start of Bathurst's multi-decade muscle car war between Holden and Ford. It was a cracker race, with the more powerful Monaros showing superior straight-line speeds to the Falcons, but spending more time in the pits due to their larger appetite for tyres and brake pads and their greater thirst for fuel. The one Holden driver to buck this trend was Bruce McPhee. Through clever car preparation and fast but disciplined driving, McPhee and his one-lap co-driver Barry Mulholland were the only Monaro contenders to complete the race distance without changing brake pads or tyres. McPhee's car also had the best economy with only 2 stops for fuel. It proved to be a winning strategy for the wily 41-year-old, delivering Holden its first Bathurst win and elevating the slightly flawed but awfully fast Monaro GTS 327 to instant legend status. Holden's image makeover had begun. If you'd like a memorable image of the HK Holden in competition, check out the incredible archive at autopics.com.au.
Yeah, my name's Peter, and this is my HK Holden Monaro that I've owned for around 12 years now. I bought it off an old fella who used it for towing his horse floats around, and it was in a rather, down state when I got it. To restore this car, it was a coat of paint. I changed the diff ratio in it. It was far too low for my application. The interior still as it was when it came out. It's aged, but it's still in good condition. But it come up, as you can see, quite good. This would be probably my number 10 Monaro that I've owned in my time. I've always liked Holdens, but especially Holden Monaros. And my father always owned Chevs in the early days. Our first Holden was an FC Holden, and of course it went on from there up to a HQ and so on. So yeah, we've always been a Holden family. I've probably been with Shannons about 3 years, and in all honesty, this car has sat in my shed uninsured for all those other years. I just never thought about having insurance until we realised what sort of money it was worth. I think Shannons are really the only people, they've got such a good reputation. It's just a great company that does the right thing by everyone. My favourite memory would be going to the Ballarat Monaro Nationals and just joining in with all those enthusiasts that own Monaros and being a part of that. Doesn't get any better than a Holden Monaro, and that goes from your first model to your last model. They're just beautiful cars.
We hope you've enjoyed reflecting on this crossroad moment in Holden history with the HK range, and we look forward to your company next time on Shannons Club TV. Bye for now.